Welcome, everyone. Welcome, class of 2026, students and families. We are very happy to have you here tonight as we have some very important information to share with you. It is 5:30, and to be respectful to everyone's time, we will go ahead and get started. And to make sure you're in the right spot, tonight is a student and family presentation regarding the 8th to 9th grade transition. We will be sharing information regarding the high school selection process. My name is Berenice Ponce. My colleague Anita Quintana and I are the Family and Community Engagement Supervisors, and we have put together this presentation for you tonight. We will go ahead and get started with a message from our administrators.
Hello, I'm Trevor Green, the proud superintendent of the Yakima School District. I am also a graduate of Davis High School, and I started my teaching career at Eisenhower High School. It's extremely exciting for me to be part of this event this evening, welcoming the class of 2026, leaving 8th grade, entering one of our wonderful high schools. We have, as I've mentioned, Davis High School, Eisenhower High School, Stanton Academy, and we have our online option. We invite you to learn so much more about the opportunities that are here in our district, recognizing that we have everything from advanced placement to access to tech center programs to international baccalaureate. And we even are working on partnerships that will allow students to earn their AA degree without leaving high school. So please pay attention this evening. If you have questions, do ask, and always feel free to reach out to the superintendent's office, my office, if there's anything that I can do to support you in this journey. Thank you. Hola, ¿cómo están? Soy el superintendente del distrito escolar de Yakima. Mi nombre es Trevor Green. Me gradué de la escuela preparatoria de Davis aquí en el distrito escolar y empecé como maestro en la escuela Eisenhower. Entonces sé algo de ambas escuelas. Pero también ofrecemos la escuela de online, los que no quieren asistir en persona, y también el Stanton Academy es otra opción. Hay 4 escuelas que pueden atender y asistir, y es mi placer de darles la bienvenida a salir del grado 8 y entrar en la preparatoria este año. Si tienen algunas preguntas, por favor, me pueden llamar aquí en el distrito escolar a la oficina del superintendente y yo les puedo ayudar y contestar preguntas. Gracias por estar aquí esta noche.
Welcome, class of 2026. I'm Heather Hasty, principal of Davis High School, and we are so excited to have you here.
Hello, class of 26. My name's Eric Diner. I'm the principal of Eisenhower High School, home of the cadets. Can't wait to see you this fall. Who are we? We are Ike.
Hello, class of 2026. My name is Dave Chaplin. I'm the principal at Stanton Academy. We look forward to working with you this fall and for the next 4 years until you reach graduation in the year of 2026.
Welcome, class of 2026. My name is Lois Menard, and I'm the principal of Yakima Online. We have been a school for 15 years. We are located behind YB Tech in the 4 portables. We are so looking forward to seeing you in the fall.
I would like to take a moment to thank our superintendent, Dr. Trevor Green, our high school principals, and Mr. Rist at Davis High School for putting that wonderful welcome message for us together. The purpose of our presentation tonight is to provide background information on the new high school selection process, to share some key timelines with you, provide important resources and information, and also at the end of our slideshow, we'll have some time designated for a Q&A session. You may submit your questions throughout our presentation by accessing a separate Google Meet, and this is the link. You can enter that in a separate browser, or you may call the phone number on the screen and entering the PIN below that. This information was also sent to your student's email if it's easier for you to access from there. I will pause for a second to allow you to write down this information or to take a screenshot for you to have available throughout our presentation. I hope that provided enough time for you to write down that information. If not, the last slide on our presentation tonight will have that information again. Our goal tonight is to share with you the new high school selection process, but also share some background information on why these changes were necessary. The Yakima School District, in an effort to more equitably serve students, has implemented a selection process to balance enrollment at both comprehensive high schools, and that's Davis and Eisenhower, for the next school year, 22-23, for the incoming freshmen, which are our current 8th graders. In balancing enrollment, it ensures that we are able to provide students with the appropriate amount of teachers and support staff so that all students can be successful throughout their high school years. A team consisting of district and building level leaders engaged in the process to develop the equity-focused, balanced enrollment operational procedure 3131. Now, if you wish to obtain more information regarding the operational procedure 3131, we welcome you to visit the Yakima School District website and entering operational procedure 3131 into the search bar, which will direct you to that document. This was data that was used in determining the changes for the high school placement for the coming school year. Please keep in mind that both of our comprehensive high schools are designed to serve 2,400 students. The current enrollment at Davis is 2,553 students, and the current enrollment at Eisenhower is 2,081 students, which puts Davis with 472 more students than Eisenhower, and it's the equivalent of nearly one more grade level worth of students. For the coming school year, 22-23, we have projected more than 1,187 incoming freshmen, and the plan is to cap Davis freshmen at 525 students and placing the remainder students at Eisenhower, which will have more than 695 incoming freshmen. After doing so, Eisenhower will have approximately 2,288 students, and Davis will have approximately 2,514 students. And you see that even after this selection process, Davis will still have 226 more students than Davis, but it is a step in the right direction in balancing the numbers at each high school. We have also projected that 85 to 88% of 8th grade students will get their first choice of high school. In the decision-making process, we have identified the following groups of Yakima School District resident students, and they will have a guaranteed placement at one school or the other, and that's based on their specific educational or situational needs. And those students include students with disabilities in self-contained classrooms, students in the newcomers program, which are the students, English learners who have received less than 1 year of instruction in U.S. schools, students identified as McKinney-Vento, so a student who qualifies for the homeless assistance services, students in foster care, siblings who will both be attending the same school, and those students who have a parent who is a full-time employee at that school. Now, all other students who don't fall under any of the groups that I just identified, those students will be part of the new process. And that process is, if there are more students that choose a high school than spots are available at that high school, their names will be placed into a random computerized selection process conducted by a third party. Those students will then be placed in their first high school of choice through a random computerized selection until a freshman class at Davis or Eisenhower is full. The remaining names will then be placed at the student's second choice high school. This is key information that we would like to share with you. It's important information for you to be aware of. The student's placement will continue throughout that student's high school experience. So their placement in their freshman year will continue throughout their graduation. High school and district staff, and that's including the superintendent, will not have access to alter or change a student's placement. And most importantly, those students who do not complete a high school choice form in the 8th grade by the established deadline will be placed at the high school with space available. Now, this is what the choice form will look like. It's an electronic choice form, and a link to this form will be sent to each 8th grade student on March 2nd. Please note that this is different than what we have done in years past. The choice form is completely electronic. A link will be sent to the student directly, and it's the student's responsibility to complete that and submit that. Students will also have the opportunity to fill out the form at school on March 2nd with assistance from school staff. Each middle school has designated some time on March 2nd to assist the students, the 8th grade students, in completing this form if they choose to complete it at school. Students will also have the opportunity to change their answer on their form until the form closes on March 9th at midnight. So just to recap the information on this slide is that the high school choice form is electronic. The link will be sent to the 8th grade student directly on March 2nd, and they will have a week to complete the form and submit their answers. So from March 2nd to March 9th at midnight is the time frame that students have to complete this form. These are suggestions that we have on how you can support your student as a parent, a guardian, a supportive adult in the household. We ask that you please have a conversation with your student about the high school selection process. Make sure that you come to a joint decision on what their high school selections will be on their form so that the student is prepared to complete that form when they receive it in their email. Please be aware of the deadlines, and I'll repeat those. March 2nd is a day that students will receive the link to that form, and March 9th at midnight is the deadline to complete that form. Ensure that your student completes the choice form, and you can do so by verifying their confirmation email. So once your student completes the choice form, they will receive a confirmation in their email after they submit the form. And please reach out and ask questions. We have designated some time at the end of this presentation for questions and answers, and I will also provide a direct phone number for you to call if you have any questions after tonight's presentation. Now, if we have any 8th graders watching tonight, this is information directly for you. This is your responsibility as an 8th grader. We want you to talk to your parents to make a joint decision on your high school selection. Talk to them about the form and make sure you're ready to complete that. Look for your electronic choice form in your school email on March 2nd. If you do not receive it or if you're having trouble accessing that, please let somebody at school know, one of your school counselors at your middle school. Let them know that you're having issues or if you have not received the link to the form. Fill out the form at school or at home with your parents between March 2nd and March 9th of 2022. And make sure you select a first and second choice between Davis, Eisenhower, Stanton, and Yakima Online. Important dates. I know I already told you these dates, but I'm going to repeat them because we want you guys to remember these. March 2nd, the high school choice forms will be emailed to each 8th grade student. And March 9th is a deadline to submit that form by midnight. So please complete that, make any changes prior to that, and submit it by midnight. In the last week in March, March 28th through the 31st, we will all find out what high school your student will be placed at. High school placement will be emailed to students. It will be sent to the high schools for them to be aware of what students are being placed there. And that information is also going to be provided to the middle schools to hand out during student conferences. Now that completes my presentation tonight. I will hand this over to our Q&A moderators. If you have any questions, again, please submit those accessing a separate Google Meet with this link here or by calling that phone number. If you have any specific questions, you may contact Kelly Riddle, who's our Director of Admissions and Enrollment, and she can be contacted by email at riddle.kelly@ysd7.org or by calling her office at 509-573-7021.
Thank you, Berenice. Mr. Gonzalez, do we have any questions yet?
So does this also apply to all honor students?
This applies to all incoming freshmen.
So was there any consideration given to parents that purchased homes within the 1 mile walking distance boundary?
So we actually started investigating this scenario about a year ago, and what we were striving to do was to continue to offer as many students possible their choice to attend whichever high school they wanted to in the Yakima School District boundaries. Every scenario we came up with put on greater prohibition to how many students would be able to have the opportunity to choose our high school. If we added they get to apply for this program, or if we added they live within these boundaries, it then automatically excluded and lowered the number of students and slots available at those high schools. So every scenario we came up with significantly impacted the number of slots available at that school. So every exception, no matter how minor it was, had a significant impact. So this scenario that we came up with is where we're capping capping Davis next year at 525, and the following year capping it at 550 or 575 the following year. That provides the greatest opportunity for students to have their choice regardless of where they live. And one thing to remember that Berenice pointed out in the presentation, that this year, about 88% of the students will receive their high school of choice. Next year, that number will go up to about 90 to 92%, and then the following year, we anticipate that only 5% of students will not receive their first high school of choice. Other than that, 95% of students will.
Is there any consideration given to siblings that are in one school or another through this selection process?
Yes, so students who will be attending a high school with their sibling will be they'll automatically receive that opportunity to attend the same high school as their sibling if they choose to. If they don't want to attend the same high school as their sibling, they don't have to, but they automatically are one of the first priorities that are placed. And our definition of sibling is any student who lives in the same household as another YSD student, as identified in Skyward, or a biological sibling as identified in Skyward.
So we now have the question on proximity to the school. The question was asked and answered within a mile, but now we're being asked, what if it's within a block or 20 feet of that school?
So we put as few to make as many slots available for students to have their choice. We put as few exceptions as possible, and we tried our hardest to not change the existing policy. And so regardless of where you live, students will get their choice as equally across the whole district. So there may be some people who live close to one high school or the other, but once that school is capped, they will be provided transportation to attend the other high school.
So is there any consideration being given for those students who took Japanese at Franklin and who would like to continue that at Davis?
We considered all the possibilities and all the ways that we could try and provide equal opportunities for students to get their choice. And again, providing exceptions for those type of situations then limited the number of slots available for students at one high school or another. So essentially, no, that is not a consideration whether you took a Japanese at Franklin.
What happens if they only put in a first choice and no second choice?
If their first choice is not available to them, then they will default to the high school with the next greatest openings.
What consideration is given to staffing growth that is needed at Eisenhower based on this projected increase?
So the Eisenhower administrators were part of the committee for the last year working on this process, and so they're prepared or are preparing for this increase of students. They have the capacity within their building space-wise. Now it's a matter of building capacity for staffing.
Is there an appeal process?
There is, and I'm actually going to ask our Director of Admissions and Enrollment, Kelly Riddle, to discuss the appeal process.
Yes, so in reference to Bernice's presentation, the Operational Policy 3131 is available on the Yakima School District website, ysd7.org. In that document, at the very last paragraph, is the process around the ability to appeal once a decision is made. We're not accepting appeals at this time until after the selection is made, and then there's a criteria of timeline based on the appeal.
So what is the process for enrolling a student should they not be given the choice of school that they've requested?
Kelly, will you take that one?
Yes, so we have other options. So if you're not happy with the placement of your student, and the appeal process is something you're not choosing or you've chosen, after that, we have Yakima Online in Stanton available. To withdraw your student from the Yakima School District, you would need to go to your student's current location, the school in which your student currently attends, and withdraw your student with the registrar there in that office.
Could there be a change in the future where choice would be weighted with things like geography and program?
We haven't had the conversations about changes to the policy yet. We've only gotten to the point where we are in order to balance the schools.
At this time, we have no further questions in the queue.
All right, thank you, Andy, and thank you, Kelly, for answering some questions, and Berenice, thank you for leading that initial part. Before I turn the time over to Superintendent Green to close, I just want to remind you that if you have questions or concerns, or your questions weren't satisfactorily answered in this meeting, please reach out to myself, Dr. Rob Darling, Deputy Superintendent, or Kelly Riddle. Her information is on the screen. And with that, Superintendent Green, would you like to close us?
Absolutely, and thank you, Dr. Darling. And for the 60 of you that are still hanging on, I will try to be brief. It's not my talent, but I will certainly try to keep this short. As a parent, I have a senior at Davis. I have a sophomore at Eisenhower. I graduated from Davis High School. I taught at Eisenhower High School. We have two tremendous high schools with great leaders at both of the schools. We do have some difference in some of the programming currently at this time, but I can tell you that I am proud to have a son and a daughter at each of the two high schools, and I'm proud to have attended and taught at each of the two high schools. So I say that because I know that there is a lot of emotion around choice, and that really did weigh into the board not going with boundaries. If we were going to go with boundaries, we would have been locked in, and any student attending a certain middle school would not have had the opportunity to choose. And we believe that by allowing choice, we're providing an opportunity that does not exist in many districts across the state. And with the criteria that we put in place, we do believe that we're looking at a minimal impact to students who would choose one high school over the other. We recognize that this is not a perfect situation for some individuals, but we continue to, while we're preparing for what could be or preparing for the worst in some case, we certainly are hoping for the best, and we're very happy about the opportunity that we have to provide more equitable services at our schools, because currently with the number discrepancy, we are losing a lot of services at one school over the other, and that is causing inequities in the way that students receive everything from social emotional support to career support and in other areas as well. So I want to thank the team here this evening for putting this presentation together, for allowing me to close this out. I do apologize for being a bit late, but I was meeting with our student group and sharing with them the same information, which is why I came a little bit late. I do encourage you to please reach out if you do have follow-up questions. It is important to hear from you, to address your concerns, and I'd be happy to take the time to do that as well. But I thank Dr. Darling and Kelly Riddle for being on the forefront of that, and for all of our presenters and people behind the scenes to make this work this evening. With that, Dr. Darling, I'll turn it back over to you.
So our first question has come in. The process doesn't seem to be fair when we look at generations that have attended a certain school, say Davis. What are the responses should a child have a bullying issue in another school? What are the processes that a parent has available to them to remediate those issues should they occur?
So, as always, any issues with bullying will be handled first and foremost at the building and with the administrators at that building. We know that all of our high schools have a comprehensive support systems in place for students, for counseling, and for other guidance and support. But should a situation arise to a level where a student doesn't feel safe, then the parents will work with the counselors in that building to figure out what is the best alternative options for that student. And then as needed, we can find alternative placements.
Second question, is there any advantage to submitting the form sooner rather than later?
There is not. None of the forms will be looked at until after it's closed on the 9th, so we won't see any forms until at the earliest on the 10th.
Is there an opportunity for children to access Davis's International Baccalaureate program should they be chosen to attend Eisenhower?
No, the programs are specific to each site. So Davis has their IB program, Ike has their AP program, and both high schools next year will offer college in the high school through Arizona State University, so students can attend either high school and receive college credits and potentially earn their associates before they graduate from high school.
How does a district plan to address transportation as needed should they require transportation across town?
The district currently offers transportation for every high school student to attend either high school, so that process will remain in place.
Do they have to pick a second school?
If they don't pick a second school and they don't get their school of first choice, then they'll be it'll be up to us to decide and guess for them what their second choice would have been. So
I have a cousin going to one of the schools. Do I have a bigger advantage going to the same high school of choice?
no, unless you and the cousin live in the same household and that's noted on Skyward and you can show evidence or legal educational guardianship that that's the case. Otherwise, relations do not provide an exception to the policy.
Do students that have a sibling attending their school of choice have to fill out the form?
Yes.
We have a follow-up question. How will my child get to the school?
We provide transportation for all of our students. And if they should select, for example, if they go to Stanton Academy, then we provide opportunities for transportation to that location as well.
Is everyone going to be placed into the drawing?
Any 8th grader who wants to attend 9th grade at the Yakima School District next year, that's an in-district student, yes. And then as Mrs. Quintana highlighted, there will be some students who will automatically place at one school or the other based on programming needs or educational service needs that are only available at one of the other high schools.
If my child has a sibling going to Ike, do they automatically get accepted into Ike?
If they want to, yes. But as Superintendent Green shared in his opening video, he has students at both high schools and they didn't want to attend the same high school as their siblings, so that's still an option for students as well. But if you have a student attending one high school and the other student wants to attend, absolutely that sibling enrollment is honored.
What about kids at Stanton? Do 8th graders get placed there as well without choice?
Stanton is an alternative choice high school, so if students want to go to Stanton, they can. Otherwise, that is not one of the 2 comprehensive high schools that students generally enroll in. That being said, we would gladly welcome anybody who wants to attend Stanton and wants a smaller setting for their students.
What are the high school start times for both high schools? Are they the same?
They are the same. And Ms. Hasty, would you remind me what the start times are?
Yes, start time is 8 o'clock in the morning and end time is 2:35 p.m.
Thank you, Mrs. Hasty.
Let's say my child is sent to X school and I do not agree with this. Is there a way to revert this later on?
The policy states that once a student is enrolled in a high school, unless they choose to enroll in Yakima Online or Stanton Academy, that high school will be their high school through graduation.
What if a parent works in the district, but the student is chosen to go to a school that they do not work at?
If the parent is a full-time employee at that high school, then the student can be enrolled in that high school. If the parent is a full-time employee of a different school, let's say an elementary school or a middle school, then their students will not have the advantage of going to one school or another.
If my child is really unhappy about this news, what can be done?
Unfortunately, we know that about 12 to 15% of the students this year will not receive the school of their choice. And although that's not ideal, we know the district needed to take measures to balance the high schools to create a more equitable situation for both high schools to provide services for students. And unfortunately, for the next couple of years, a handful of students will not receive their first school of choice. But I having been in both schools significantly over the last several years, I know that I, as a parent, am happy and excited to send my student to either high school or any of our 4 high schools. And so I know that given a little bit of time, the student will learn to love whichever high school they're placed at.
What happens if a student doesn't fill out the form?
Then the student leaves it up to us to decide which school they wanted to go to. Every student will receive the email on the 2nd. And on the 2nd, every middle school is taking the time to work with students to help them fill it out should they choose to fill it out at school. But they have through the 9th. And then we will be checking the forms all throughout the week, and counselors will be checking in with students who are not completing them. So unless a student refuses to show up the whole week and refuses to answer any phone calls and refuses to answer any knocks at the door when we show up to check on them, then that student does not want to fill out the form. Other than that, we're going to give them every opportunity they can to fill it out.
What is the best way to pick a high school as far as the curriculum is concerned?
So both of our high schools have very comparable curriculum and comparable opportunities for students as far as academics and as far as extracurricular activities. You can go to the websites and see what they have to offer as far as information that they have for clubs and such. But for example, the math curriculum is exactly the same for our middle school and high schools. Our high schools across the board. They may offer different components to it, whether it's IB program or the AP program. But again, those are very comparable in what they have to offer as an end result as well for students. And the district website also has information regarding the curriculum. But again, most of that is common across the different buildings.
Can I fill out the form instead of having my son deciding where he wants to go?
Yes, we know that many parents will do this with or for their children. And we wanted to let you know during these evening events when the information is going to be sent out and how it's going to be sent out. And even if your child fills out their form and you don't agree with their decision, the form can be changed or modified all the way through midnight on the 9th. So you'll have, once you submit it, that is not the only time it can be corrected. You'll receive an email in the student's inbox showing the results of their form, and then you can go through after that and modify it should you need to.
Where would I find the form to fill out which high school I would like to go to?
The form will be emailed to all of our 8th graders on March 2nd.
In the past, teachers gave students an idea of which level of classes to sign up or into. What will happen now?
Dr. Ellis, would you like to answer that one?
Absolutely. This is the first step in the registration process. This is your high school selection. Once the students are placed at their high schools, then each high school has a different registration process that will involve the high school counselors and the middle school counselors, helping them to identify what courses they will be enrolled in during their freshman year.
Thank you.
So if our child gets selected to go to Eisenhower and they'd like to access the Japanese program at Davis, is there any way to do that?
So students will only be able to access the courses available offered at their high school. So for example, in that situation, the student would not be able to access a Japanese class at a different high school.
Does Ike offer a sign language class?
Mr. Stevens, would you answer that for us?
Yes, Eisenhower does offer ASL for up to 3 years.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
When will school start this year?
The school calendar is still being determined, but we should have resolution on that soon if it wasn't already approved at the last board meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. And yeah, that's correct. And so it will start relatively the same as it did this year. So around the 24th or 25th of August, we will get that information out as soon as we can.
Is there a website where I can see all the different programs at each high school?
Yes, but you have to go to each high school individually and compare them. We don't have any side-by-side comparisons.
Will there be a freshman orientation?
Yes. Ms. Hasty or Mr. Stevens, do you know about when that happens?
For Davis, it happens the week or two before school starts, and we do an orientation that's a couple days long for the freshmen.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
And that'll be similar for Eisenhower too. It's going to be held at the beginning of the year.
Thank you. So when your student receives information about their high school, and once they're enrolled in courses, they'll get all the information about when the summer events happen, when freshman orientation occurs, and where.
And sorry to interrupt, but there'll also be an 8th grade parent meeting late in the spring after students choose for both schools.
Can my child choose their own classes?
Yes.
So once again, if we really want IB, what could be done?
Well, if you're playing the odds, you have pretty good odds that you'll be able to get into the school of your choice because, as we said earlier, between 85 and 88% of the students will get their high school of choice.
Was there thought about why more students want to go to Davis before making this decision?
So this decision has been a conversation piece for the last several years, and the committee has started meeting around how to solve this issue about 12 months ago. And over the last 10 or 15 years, there's an ebb and flow between the two high schools. And this difference, this disparity that we're seeing now is greater than it has been in the past. And so the district has been forced to take actions to forcefully balance the numbers rather than wait for them to go swing back the other way as they historically have happened.
This is more of a comment. I don't mean to be upsetting or mean. We are just really disappointed in this process.
Yeah, this district, the decision to revamp this policy was not an easy one, nor one that we took lightly. And we know that in order to equitably serve the 5,000 students at the high schools, we had to create or live within a policy that is based on inequity. And so we know that for a handful of students, they will not get the space, they will not get the location they want because there purely isn't space for it. We know that over the next 3 or 4 years, that will correct itself pretty significantly to the point where there will be equal opportunities at both high schools. But for now, it got to a point where we had to make a decision. So this class and next year's class, there will be some students who don't get their first high school of choice. But again, it was decided that it was better to not honor the request of a handful of students to better serve the 5,000 students in both high schools better.
What if my son is sent to X high school and I do not agree? Is West Valley or East Valley an option for me?
I don't know if West Valley or East Valley are accepting out-of-district students, but there's a transfer process that you can go through, and you just have to contact those school districts to find out what it is.
That was the last of the questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Gonzalez. So those students and staff that are still on here, thank you much for being here this evening. If we did not answer your question or you had another question that comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can email Director Kelly Riddle at her email at the bottom, or leave a message call her office and she can answer your questions. Tomorrow night, we'll be having the same presentation in Spanish for those of you who want to attend or share the information. And the link to that same information is the same as this one. So if you want to attend tomorrow night in Spanish at 7 o'clock, we will see you here. Thank you for being here, and I hope you all have a great evening.